Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. We are in chapter 22. We are lingering in chapter 22 because, Proverbs 22, because there's so many good words of wisdom, pearls of wisdom here. So let's get to it. Um, um, we're um, we're going to pick it up at verse 11. And again, let me just say this. As I said, I've been kind of going back and forth with some of the other translations for this reason. Some of them are older translations or translations that are closer to, let's say, the King James or the New King James. So, uh, for familiarity's sake, that's why I go back and forth with those translations. All right, verse 11 says, "The one who loves a pure heart and gracious lips, the king is his friend." Okay. The Lord's eye keep watch over knowledge, but he overthrows the words of the treacherous. The slacker says, "There's a lion outside. I'll be killed in the public square." Now we're going to see a couple of statements like this. We're going to see a couple of um, um, about laziness. Okay, and that um, that all the excuses that a lazy person will come up with as to not work, right? So he says, "There's a lion outside. I'll be killed in the public square." Now, there may be a lot of other people out in the public square, but he's going to say, "There's a lion." In other words, all these excuses. Verse 14 says, "The mouth of a forbidden woman is a deep pit. A man cursed by the Lord will fall into it." Now, a forbidden uh, woman is usually the word. I'm sorry. Okay. Uh, the forbidden woman is an adulterous woman. Then he says, "A man who is cursed by it." Now, many men have fallen into this adultery trap. Okay, adultery trap. All right, we covered that a lot in the first. Think about it, the first 8 chapters of Proverbs, where he warns against falling into the trap of an adulterous woman or adultery. Verse 15, "Foolishness is tangled up in the heart of the youth, but the rod of discipline will drive it away from him." Now, again, this is one of these, again, verses of raising kids. Now, what is kind of interesting is that, remember we said that the word, how Proverbs is using the word foolish, is one who doesn't believe God, one who doesn't believe in God, and the one who doesn't obey God. Excuse me. So foolishness by nature is just going down this foolish path. God says, "Don't go this way," we go this way. God declares what is wrong. Foolishness says, "I'm going to go that way anyway. I'm going to go in the way of foolishness." Now, he says, you start off, by the way, with a person being foolish. It's called the sinful nature. Adam gave us that sinful nature. By nature, we start off going in a foolish way. Now, parentheses, thank God for his mercy. Or, as the saying goes, there about the grace of God, right? We would fall into this. But so the idea is that's what is the saving grace. But as far as our nature, we start off with foolishness. Now that's why I say that in modern psychology, child psychology, which is the way of the world, you need to be careful. Many Christians have fallen into this the way of the world, the way the world thinks. Their way of thinking is that everyone is good. You remember the Star Wars trilogy? And you had evil Darth Vader. He was the most evil person in the world next to the Emperor, right? Now, And yet Luke kept saying, but I sense good in him. That's a false New Age philosophy. And what happens in the end, where he did finds the good, that Darth Vader turns back and kills the Emperor, you know. But that's, again, that's a false ideology. Man is foolish because man is sinful. So you start with every child, right? You just watch a baby. Well, maybe babies exhibit that. Now they're innocent in that they don't really kind of comprehend what they're doing. But look at all of these sinful, foolish acts. I got grandkids. I know. I see them. I get used to them again, like having babies around. But they incredibly selfish, incredibly sinful, right? You watch. I can watch my 2-year-old granddaughter, and don't go there. And she looks back. She'll turn around and look at you. That lets you know this foolishness is tangled up in the heart of a youth. He said, but a rod of discipline would drive it far from him. Now, I've talked about this discipline act, and what do we mean by discipline? Because oftentimes parents can overdo it. And as I said before, we live in a age where we need to be wise because you have people who do not believe, okay, in the Christian way. And as I said before, when it comes to modern society or modern child psychology, they're not godly. They're not trying to raise your kids to follow God. They're not trying to raise your kids in a godly way. So when I think about people that, what's being pushed now is the therapy. Therapists don't even know what they're talking about. Therapists have therapists, and without getting into all of that nonsense, and I do call it nonsense. What has it cured? It doesn't. Crazy people are still crazy out there. People are still going crazy. But again, I'm not going to go down the path of why. The point is, the ideal of this psychology when they don't have the answers. One, secondly, and most importantly, they deny biblical truth. So why would you are foolish to follow that ideology? My thing is, I'm not going to pay a therapist to tell me what I already know. And why would I pay a therapist to just express what I already know? There are plenty of people that are listening to me. There are plenty of people out there that will listen to your garbage, my garbage, right? And they still don't give you any sensible answers, any ones that you don't already know. Why do I act this way? Yes, why do you act this way? Anyway, but the point is that the change comes in discipline. Now, again, this discipline should happen fairly early in a child's life. So I'm going to use psychology terms, informative years. They come to a point where just beating them or spanking them is not going to do any good. It doesn't even do good from a discipline perspective. Now, later on in life, this discipline can take the form in jail time. Okay, this is why you want to try to train your children in the way they should go. But this verse tells us what is the most important thing here is foolishness is there. If you try to say, well, you're a good child, no, foolishness is there. And when a child continually shows you that, the level of foolishness is always different in terms of a child. If I see a child starting a fire and then loving it, rejoicing in it, that should be an alarm to you. Like, okay, let me discipline this child, but let me also teach and instruct them. If I see a child beating a dog to death and enjoying it, and there are children that do that, before they continue on that destructive path, this is what he's saying. We need to understand it's there. There are inclinations to sin in all of us. The problem is that sometimes, depending on how we were raised, those inclinations were never dealt with. And that's why we grow into more and more foolishness in our lives. But we have to first come to the place of understanding that foolishness is there, or sinfulness is there, which in all of its form, however you want to take it, sinfulness is there. So he says, foolishness is tangled up in the heart of a youth, but the rod of discipline would drive it far from it. So discipline work. Now, how do you discipline it? As I said, he said the rod of discipline. Now, right here, he's talking about spanking. Like I said, the most effective time is going to be in the formative years, when they're young, when you have control to shape to the mindset. Whooping your child at 17, I'm going to almost say it's going to do absolutely nothing. Okay. Also, you need to understand how foolishness or sinfulness, the sinful nature, is stirred up in our society, in the world we live in today. Social media. This brings the world closer. Now, remember, the world lies in wickedness. That brings the world closer. The inclinations that are there can only get stirred. Think about this right now. The foolishness of transgenderism that's being pushed by the world. But how can an 8-year-old know what gender they are? Well, let me just say the foolishness of that. I don't know, just look down. Every time they go to the bathroom, they know what gender they are. But now, wait a minute, let's not discount something here. The inclinations, how they feel, how they think, this is real. So if you have a person that says, I have an inclination that I want to be a woman or I want to be a man who wants to be a woman who wants to be a man. Let's not discount the inclination there. It is foolish, but right? Think about it. And then you think about, here's a guy who wants to go with a guy that dresses up like a woman when, okay, you could get a woman. But that's the inclination of sin. So so now what you have is the world pushing this. And now you got the argument of should transgender men who are trying to transition to women be on women team. That's the foolishness. Now, by the way, I'm not. So how do you? That my point is the foolishness is there. When you think about serial killers, how about today we deal with mass shooters? I will never understand. I wish I could, because I would be a billionaire if I could unlock. In other words, before, because I almost now weekly mass shooters going into and shooting up wherever they go, and it's everywhere now at this point. Gas stations, schools, hospitals, churches, anywhere, any and everywhere, parks, whatever. Why? Right? Just think about why. Why do they think that's okay? Why do they think? Because, like, from our perspective, we know that we know that uh, after death, right? After death, for the rest of eternity, that act, that act of carnage, does you no good. From that perspective, it's the most stupidest thing you could do. The carnage that you reap. You're able to shoot a few people. Nowadays, it's a few people. Depending on how one of the, I think what the one that happened in Las Vegas, the numbers were high, extremely high. And then they die. I mean, in other words, you're going to, so you're going to be in jail or you're going to die. You think about, well, 5 years after that incident, what are you thinking now? It would take a very evil person to go, yeah, I'm still glad I did it. But here's the point. You go back, and as a Christian, what I'm saying is, as a Christian, that foolishness is there. That the inclination for the foolishness is there. Now, as I said before, one of the biggest obstacles or the biggest success of parenting is being there. So you parents that you are struggling to have a good life. The domino effects of foolishness. Now go back to the parent themselves. The problem with parenting themselves, you don't make the right decisions yourself. So maybe you don't set up your financial future. I'll put it in that very, very generic way. Part of that is going to school, getting a college degree. Some of it could be getting a trade. Some of it can have financial sense. And I knew people who had no college degrees, but guess what? They had financial sense. Bought their first property when they was 21. And they started investing in venues that made the money, and they become millionaires, retired by the time they was 30. Okay? So, parents who don't do that. So now you want a certain kind of lifestyle. So what do? In order to have that kind of work style, you work and you put yourself in positions that take you away from home. And when you get into positions that take you away from home, now what do? Your kids are home by themselves, or they're by themselves. So what happens now? In our day, this becomes daddy. This becomes daddy, mama. The world comes closer. You're not there to see the changes in the ideology, the changes in the mindset. Remember, the foolishness was always there. Oh my God, incest? Oh my God, wait a minute, what happened to the incest? Well, remember, you can go in the world, they got porn right here. In the porn, one of the biggest things of porn, they can say, hey, guess what? Family incest. Oh my God, how did my child come out gay? How did my child come out binary, non-binary, or whatever they call themselves? The foolishness was always there. So when you if you're there, you're able to see it and you're able to deal with it. In this case, the discipline he's talking about. But remember, just a few verses up, he says, train up your child. In verse 6, right? Verse 6, teach your youth about the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Let me go over here and let's do this again. Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. And now when we come down, folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline drives it far from him. Now, as I said before, a lot of times we think about um, that phrase is more familiar to us. But anyway, it says the same thing. See, in other words, we start in life with this foolishness or the sinful nature. That we have inclinations to the sinful nature. We start this way. We start off with sin. It's bound in our hearts. That's why discipline drives it from us, but also teaching and training. All right, like I say, I know there's to me, there's some very practical wisdom here for us. We're wise if we keep it, foolish if we don't. All right, guys, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. I'll see you in the next study. All right.